Today in the news, AMD is efficient, Stadia gets even worse, don't know how that's possible, and ray tracing benchmarks for any GPUs. What's up guys, I'm Snows and this is your boot sequence. Well, it's over. Intel has pretty much lost all presence in the HEDT platform thanks to the 3950X. Now, performance-wise, all I have to say is wow. I'm just going to put one or two slides here for you, but if you want a performance review, you should check out Hardware Canucks' video on the subject, linked in the cards up here. What I really found impressive is how efficient this CPU is. I was kind of scared of their recommendation to use a 280mm cooler, thinking it might run hot, but it seems like the 16-core monster essentially draws the same amount of power or less than its 12-core sibling, the 3900X. Anyways, I just wanted to touch on it. Again, full review up here. Oh, yep, makes sense. Next up, we got Google, and oh wow, if you thought Stadia was bad when I talked about it last, it just got so much worse. I have to admit, I had pre-ordered it on launch date, and I kept the pre-order all the way up to yesterday morning when I read their Q&A on the subject. I thought, well, it might still be worth it since at least the specs are here and I could enjoy it with a friend or test out the new features that are integrated with YouTube and stuff, but it seems like I was wrong. If you haven't heard of the delays and issues Stadia already has, click up here to get caught up. But let's look at the new ones. So the 3 months of Stadia that you receive was supposed to come with an extra 3 months to play with a friend. That buddy pass will only be sent to you about 2 weeks after you receive your actual bundle. Nice. Then they added that 4K will not be available for PCs at launch. Neither will HDR or even 5.1 surround. And that support won't come until at least 2020. Then all the extra Google features like crowd play, state share, or Keystream Connect won't be available for the games that have been announced. In fact, at launch, none of the YouTube or social features will work. They also said that games that will support those features will come out next year. This is odd phrasing because it makes it seem like the developers have to build those features into the games, and we all know what happens when devs have to add something themselves. It usually just doesn't happen. Plus, if you want to do anything like change quality settings for Chromecast or even just change account info, you're gonna have to do that from your smartphone. Google, this is bad. Sure, a streaming service is hard to build from the ground up, but I think you should have went for a much longer and much more complete beta. Project Stream was not a beta. At this point, it was essentially a tech demo. And now you're making people buy hardware for an incomplete service where rollouts of the best features like social integration, 4K 60, and others are not gonna happen until 2020, and I highly doubt it'll happen in the first quarter. I mean, I pulled my pre-order. Look at Xbox, they're still in their beta preview phase and they just added to their library, which now includes over 50 games. The preview is also coming to PCs in 2020 and they're expanding it to other countries too. The biggest win Xbox will have over the rest is compatibility with Xbox Game Pass, so it will truly become a Netflix for games. Now, just to be clear, PS Now did it first, but PlayStation has a lot of limitation on the service, like only being available on PC and PS4, the controller support, and the limited resolution of 720p. At least Sony plans on fixing some of those issues for the future. Moving on to some ray tracing news, we now have another way to test it out on DX11. So last month, World of Tanks added support for ray traced shadows on the tanks in their games. While it's a fun benchmark, it's not something that you really notice during gameplay. I mean, ray tracing has so many applications, and shadows, especially when it only applies to the tanks in the game, isn't that impressive. Well, CryEngine just released their Neon Noir demo for download. If you want to test extreme reflections on any GPUs that supports DX11, all you have to do is follow the link in the description to download it. WCCF Tech did some testing on a bunch of GPUs and, unsurprisingly, the 2080 Ti reigns supreme. What's more interesting is how many cards can actually reach 60 FPS in at least 1080p, and that's with the Ultra setting that does full resolution ray tracing. This is due in large part because the engine changes the level of detail in objects that are reflected. With a demo like that, it feels like when Nvidia pushed real-time ray tracing, they sort of brute forced it with dedicated hardware rather than working with game studios to find ways to make performance better like Crytek did. On the other hand, it is Nvidia, so if they can just, build the hardware, make it super expensive, and just shove money down devs' throats to say, make this work on our cards, they'll do it. Anyways, guys, that is pretty much it for the news today. Hopefully you've enjoyed. If you got any questions or comments, you can leave them down below. As usual, you can click right here to see the latest video right here to subscribe to the channel. Stay frosty, my dudes, and I'll see you on the next one. Oh, I almost forgot.